You are a bad eyewitness. And I'm not saying this to impugn your memory or to say that you're intentionally remembering things wrong, but instead you are a bad eyewitness because you are a human. And whenever I'm having a conversation with one of my clients and we're trying to unpack their past, and we're trying to learn why they are the way that we are, I always think about Sergeant Friday from the old television show from the 50s and 60s, Dragnet. And whenever Sergeant Friday would come to a scene and he'd be talking to an eyewitness, he would say, "All we want are the facts, ma'am." Because as a law enforcement official, he doesn't want conjecture. He doesn't want interpretation. He wants the facts that can figure out what actually happened. But the problem is, we are notoriously bad eyewitnesses. So much so, we are even notoriously bad eyewitnesses to our own experience. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to go into part 7 of our healing and transformational fundamentals, and we are going to look at this idea of how we are notoriously bad eyewitnesses to our own experience and how that can get in the way of our transformation and what we can do to ensure the transformation happens. This is Monterastelli, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast, recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 570, originally aired August 2nd, 2023. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds you well, wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to join me. Thanks for spending a little time with me today. Today, what we are going to do is we are going to dive into and continue to explore these healing fundamentals. And today, we're going to look at how we are notoriously bad eyewitnesses to our own experience and what we can do about it when we're trying to create transformation. As we navigate our way through this particular conversation, we're going to be talking about the subconscious mind, and in this case, how the subconscious mind holds inaccurate information, and the process of transforming that inaccurate information isn't just a matter of thinking new thoughts, that the subconscious mind is created in such a way that we can't write directly into it very, very easily. That's the reason why I use the tool called tapping. Tapping is an incredibly powerful tool in helping us to unpack and uncover and transform those beliefs in the subconscious mind. If you are new to tapping and have never tapped before, all you need to do is follow the little red arrow in the upper right-hand corner, which will take you to learntotap.com. There we have a great little introduction that will show you the basics of tapping and how you can introduce it into your life right away, so that as we navigate our way through all of these training and informational videos, you're going to be able to master tapping and create the transformation that you want. As we look at this idea of us being notoriously bad eyewitnesses to our own experience, the first thing we need to understand is we need to understand why we are bad eyewitnesses. And so this has to do with two particular parts. One is the way we experience something. The other is the way we remember it. So let's break those apart one at a time. So first of all, the way that we are taking information in is not a perfect, accurate representation of what is going on around us. And we can be impacted by lots of things in the way that we are experiencing, in the way that we are remembering what is going on. And so there are lots of things that impact our ability to create memory. So for example, the first is our senses are imperfect. I mean, you know what this is like, where you are sitting in a coffee shop somewhere and you look up and you're like, "Oh my gosh, that is my friend from high school." And then a moment later, you're like, "Oh no, they don't look like my friend at all." Instead, what you've done is you've taken the information that is coming in through your eyes, you've interpreted it in such a way where it's not accurately reflecting what's going on. I'm sure you've been in a circumstance where you have misheard someone, where they've said something and you have heard something else. As a dyslexic, I do this all the time when I'm reading, because I am creating words on the page that are not on the page because of the way my neurology works, because of the way my visual cortex works. I'm getting a distorted view of the world. And you don't have to be neurologically divergent like I am with dyslexia in order to be misinterpreting what is going on. So firstly, we have flawed senses, therefore our memory can be flawed. Number two, the resource state that we are in is going to impact the way that we remember stuff. I am going to remember details better early in the day, after a good night's sleep, after that first cup of coffee, and I'm sharp because of caffeine, and something that happens in the middle of the night, while I'm sick, while I'm tired, while I'm angry, while I'm sad. my resource state, what I'm experiencing in my body in this moment, impacts my ability to accurately assess what is going on. Number 3, we are bringing our preconceived notions to the conversation, to the moment that we are in. There's actually this thing called confirmation bias. And what confirmation bias is we are going to confirm what we believe in what we are seeing. So it's not seeing is believing, but instead we see what we believe. So if I'm in a circumstance where I believe you are trying to undercut me so you can get an advantage for me, if we're in a meeting and you ask a question, I don't interpret that as a question. I interpret that as an attack. You ask the question, I know you're trying to get ahead of me, so my thought is, oh, you're asking that question to show me up in front of the team and to show the boss that I am dumb. Now, that is not a fact. That is an interpretation because of the preconceived notion I have. The exact same thing can be true, when we hear about people who have committed horrific crimes, that their neighbors say, oh, he was such a sweet person. I would never believe they would do something like that. Because they borrow a cup of sugar from their neighbor, because they see them out mowing their yard, because they talk to them about the weather, because they have these nice, kind interactions with their neighbor, they assume their neighbor is a nice person. And so when we are showing up with preconceived notion, because we have a preconceived notion because we're human, that is going to shade the way that we are interpreting stuff. So in the moment, as we are experiencing things, because of our resource state, because of our preconceived notions, because of the fallibility of our senses, we are not remembering the facts. We might be remembering something close to the facts, but they aren't necessarily the facts. So the way we interpret stuff impedes our ability to remember things accurately. The second thing that gets into the way of us remembering things accurately is us re-remembering things. Because when we remember something, when we call it to mind, it is not me looking at a picture on the wall. It is not me recreating something. Instead, what I'm doing is, instead of looking at a static image, what I'm doing instead is I'm opening a Word document. And the Word document is an autosave. And so, as I am engaging with the memory, I'm actually changing the memory because I'm bringing the information of this moment and I'm adding it to the memory. That's the reason why there are fish stories. And if you're not familiar with a fish story, someone says, well, the fish was this big. 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 Now, the person isn't lying over time and changing the story, but instead, they remember the fish and they remember how excited they were that they caught the fish, so the fish gets a little bigger in their memory. And the next time they retell the story, they remember how excited they were about this awesome fish, so the fish gets a little bit bigger in their memory. The same is true for a lot of people when they think about their first kiss. Oftentimes when you think about your first kiss, it's like the reality is it's two 13 or 14 or 15-year-olds who were like so scared and overwhelmed and awkward that it was far from a romantic moment. But now, in my late 40s, as I look back at me as a teenager, I look at those moments and those experiences through the sentimental eyes of the past. Because it was a sweeter, innocent time. Because the way I thought about relationships as a teenager is so different than the way that I think about them as an adult. And so I look at the past with these tinted rose-colored glasses, which makes me see the past so much softer and so much sweeter. And so as I think back to that time, I don't go, ooh, that was awkward, but compared to today, it was really, really nice. I just go, aw, that was really, really sweet. And so we're in a circumstance where we are not accurately gathering information, and as we remember stuff, we change the memories. Now, as I say all of this, I am not saying that you should not trust any of your memories and you should not trust anybody else's memory. That's not the case. But instead, particularly when we're thinking about ourselves, particularly when we think about the way we define ourselves by our past experiences, I'm a failure because, I'm a bad person because, it's really important for us to recognize as we're looking back to the past that it's not that it is an inaccurate representation, but it's a biased representation. So let's go back to Detective Friday from Dragnet. When someone gives a report as an eyewitness that in the accident that happened, the person driving the car that went speeding away was driving a 1968 red Ford Mustang with New Jersey license plates. Now, the detective doesn't go, oh, human memory's fallible, people are bad eyewitnesses, I'm just going to ignore what they're saying. And they're not going to be in a circumstance where they say, oh my gosh, this is absolutely 100% true. The only thing that we're looking for are 1968 red Mustangs with New Jersey license plates. Instead, it becomes a starting point. And so when I'm tapping and I'm bringing these thoughts to mind and I'm remembering what is happening, when I'm tapping, this is the way I tap on my past. And I'm just going to encourage you to tap along with me if you have friends free and you can do that and just move from point to point. I recognize the fact as I remember this past experience, there is information in this memory that is useful for me to create transformation. And at the exact same time, I recognize the fact that this memory isn't 100% accurate and isn't 100% true. But it is a great entry point for my transformation to try and understand the way that I am and why I am this way. And at the exact same time, I give myself permission to recognize what comes next and what I believe about myself now is way more important than what I remember and how I define myself in the past. Take a nice big deep breath. And so for me, when I tap on that, what it does is it moves me away from this is what happened in the past to this is some really interesting information for me to investigate as I create transformation. The past moment informs where I'm standing right now, but it does not predetermine where I go next. It's important I understand why I'm standing where I'm standing, and it's important for me to name the state that I want to be in next and work towards that particular thing. And if I'm doing that, then the fact that my memories are not exactly perfect is okay. So the big takeaway from all of this is to realize is that our memories are fallible. That doesn't mean that they are completely unreliable, but it's important that as we're remembering stuff, as we're thinking about how we are, and the way we are that we are, for us to recognize the fact that that is an interpretation, that is an opinion that gives us insight, but it's not the end all be all. So we are notoriously bad eyewitnesses to our own experience. That is number 7 in this series. If you would like to dive even deeper into this transformational fundamental series, all you need to do is look at the screen right now. As you look at the screen right now, there's a little link for the entire playlist. Go enjoy every single one of the fundamentals, and it will create healing and transformation for you. And most importantly, make it easier for you to create that transformation.